Episode 11. The Caravan in the Sahara, Learning to Walk Alone. Have you ever found yourself in a moment so quiet, so vast, that you suddenly realize how small you are? Have you ever been alone, not just physically, but in a way that makes you question if you are truly lost or finally free? The Sahara is a place of silence, where the sky stretches endlessly and the sand shifts like time itself. It was there, amid the dunes, that I found myself walking alone, unsure of my direction. At first I feared I had lost my way, but what I didn't realize was that the desert wasn't trying to take something from me, it was trying to give me something back. This is the story of a caravan, a storm, and the lesson the Sahara taught me about learning to walk alone. I had always wanted to see the Sahara. Something about it fascinated me. The vastness, the golden dunes, the way the desert seemed both empty and full at the same time. So when I found myself in Morocco, I signed up for a camel trek. A small caravan of travellers, led by local Berber guides, would take us deep into the dunes for 3 days, camping beneath the stars. The journey began in the late afternoon. The air was warm but cooling as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Our camels walked in a slow, steady rhythm, their padded feet barely making a sound as they moved over the sand. I was surrounded by strangers, yet the quietude of the desert made us all feel connected, as if we were part of something ancient. The first night in the desert was magical. We camped in a circle, the fire flickering against the backdrop of the endless dunes. Our guide, Omar, told us stories, tales of travellers who had crossed the desert for centuries, of nomads who had learned to read the sand like a book. "The desert teaches you," Omar said as he poured mint tea into small glasses, "but only if you are willing to listen." I didn't know what he meant at the time, but I would soon find out. On the second day, the desert changed. The air grew heavier, the wind stronger. A storm was coming. It wasn't a violent one, but strong enough that we had to stop and wait for it to pass. We huddled together as the sand whirled around us like a living thing. I closed my eyes, listening to the wind howl, feeling the grains of sand press against my skin. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the storm passed. I opened my eyes, expecting to see my group right beside me, but instead I saw nothing, just sand, dunes stretching endlessly in every direction. My breath caught in my throat. Where was everyone? I turned in circles, searching for any sign of the caravan, but the storm had erased our tracks. It was as if we had never been there at all. Panic set in. My heart pounded. My mind raced. Had they left without me? Had I walked in the wrong direction? Was I lost? I had never felt so alone. There were no roads, no signs, no familiar landmarks. Just the wind, the sand and the sky. But then, another thought surfaced, one quieter than the panic, but stronger than the fear. The desert teaches you, but only if you are willing to listen. I took a deep breath. If I panicked, I would make mistakes. If I ran, I could get even more lost. I needed to stop, to breathe, to think. So I did. I sat down in the sand and let the silence surround me. I looked at the sun, noting its position. I remembered where the caravan had been heading, and then, when I was ready, I stood up and started walking. At first, it felt wrong, moving without absolute certainty. But the longer I walked, the more I realized something. I wasn't truly lost. I still had my senses, my instincts. The desert wasn't my enemy. It was simply testing me, asking me to trust myself. I walked for what felt like hours, my legs aching, my throat dry. But I kept going, not out of desperation, but because I believed I could. And then, just as the sun began to lower, I saw it. A small dark shape in the distance, a camel, and beside it the flicker of a campfire, my caravan. Relief flooded me. But more than that, I felt something deeper, a quiet sense of understanding. I had not been rescued. I had found my way back. That night, as we sat around the fire, Omar looked at me and smiled. "Oh, walked alone today," he said. It wasn't a question, it was a knowing statement. I nodded, ease. He poured me a cup of tea, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. "Andy, did you find what you needed?" I thought about it, about the fear, the stillness, the trust I had found in myself. And I realized the answer was yes. For so much of my life, I had been afraid of being alone. Afraid that without guidance, without someone else to tell me where to go, I would be lost. But the desert had shown me the truth. I wasn't lost. I just never trusted myself enough to believe I could find my way. Sometimes, the greatest journeys aren't about reaching a destination. They're about learning that you are enough, exactly as you are. The world is filled with noise, expectations, distractions, voices telling us where to go. But sometimes, the journey we need the most is the one we take alone. In the next episode, we travel to Beijing, where a single lantern floating into the sky will remind us of the power of letting go. Until then, remember, the path is yours. Walk it with trust.